I'm sure you need no introduction, but I'm obligated to do it because this is on a podcast.
Yeah, your podcast.
Know who the heck you are. Yeah. So this is Wealth Science, sponsored by CRM Science. And Randy Cass, because I think I mispronounced it 14 times when we first met. I think I did. That's typically something I do.
Randy's a tough name to get right.
Yeah, for sure. But Randy from Nest Wealth, welcome. Thanks for joining, and tell me a little bit about yourself, although I know you quite well, I think, and what your company does.
Yeah. So thank you for having me on the podcast. I know you're probably not releasing these in the order or in the time that you're recording them, but it has been tough to get on your podcast, man. Every time I walked by, there was someone else sitting in the chair. They were staying for an extended period of time. For a guy that didn't even pay to be in Podcast Alley, you are the hot podcast of day 3. So I'm the CEO and founder of Nest Wealth. I've been involved in the financial services industry for probably close to 25 years, if not more now. I've done anything from managed portfolios at pension plans to traded currency derivatives for one of the large banks up in Canada. This is my third fintech that I've started and has been invested in by other people. Last one was a company called First Coverage that started about 2005, went through the 2007, 8, 9 meltdown, and then we ended up selling it. Good experience in about 2011, 12 to a UK company. Took a couple years to host a TV show up in Canada on BNN. Yeah, you knew that. Didn't you know that?
I did not know that.
Or you could have been feigning surprise for the sake of your audience. Yeah, don't get excited. BNN is it's like Canadian CNBC, but it is somewhere from a ratings point of view between kind of that static snowy screen that lets you know TV's gone off for the night and maybe the one that beeps to let you know missiles incoming. It's kind of in between there. So I did that for a couple of years, and then I started up Nest Wealth, and we started very similar to what your listeners might kind of call a robo-advisor, direct to consumer, challenger brand, trying to be the place where people decided to invest their money for lower fees. But man, it was going to be a tough road to make that business profitable. Like, you could scale it. There was VC money for it, but to make that business profitable, which was one of my goals this time around, was a tough road. So in 2016, we kind of pivoted our course and became an enterprise SaaS provider to the financial institutions that needed to figure out how they were going to provide a digital channel to their investors, how they were going to modernize their mid and back office. And so now we've been on a great run up in Canada. We've come down to T3 to announce that we're finally coming into the States, but up in Canada, we've got 3 out of the 6 banks using us. We've got, by the end of this year, 85% of the wealth firms, the independent wealth firms across Canada are going to be using our onboarding. So we've had a really good run, and it's been great. Now we're interested to see what kind of noise we can make down here.
Awesome. I was going to start with, let's start with why you came to T3.
Yeah.
I do want to take a right turn and make sure we talk a little bit about the platform that we're working on together.
Yeah.
But let's talk first about why T3.
Look, I've always wanted to come to T3. Whenever you read Michael's newsletters or blog posts, I mean, T3 is mentioned as the conference to get to for the last couple of years. It obviously wasn't something that was possible because of the pandemic. And then this year, the marketing team just decided that this was our coming out party. Got me super excited. I did a good talking slot on Tuesday morning, and fortunately I closed this thing down with the last talking slot on the last day too. So it'd probably just be me and you and a bottle of tequila in the room.
I think you're actually competing with us. Are you at 3:00?
No, I'm at like 5.
5.
Yeah.
You're not competing.
No, I'm not competing with you guys.
My flight's delayed, so I might actually make it.
Oh, that's nice.
Just for you.
And it's really, it's sometimes, like, as a CEO, sometimes you put down arbitrary deadlines. You say we have to get this done by this date, and the company inevitably might slip in some areas, but having a deadline like T3 to announce, look, we got to be ready. We got to come out. We got to have a cohesive story. We got to have something to show. It galvanizes people together. And then once you get here, like we've been up in the offices in Toronto for 2 years, figuring out what the next version of our product is going to look like. We've made some significant bets on which way the industry is going. And we've really only had ourselves to kind of noodle on it. And then you come down to T3 and you close your eyes and you pray and you're like, all right, how is the industry going to react to that? And when you get the type of positive reception and, oh, wow, this is exactly what we're kind of looking for. It's a gamble. You roll the dice that that's the way it's going to be, but man, does it motivate the company and increase morale. So there are a lot of ways to use conferences like this. But those were the ones we kind of decided on. It was a good deadline. It was a good audience. It was a good conference. And it was, if everything went well, going to be a great morale booster for the back half of 2022.
So I want to get to what you and I, what you're taking out of the conference, right? Between an observation or maybe some questions, but let's take that right turn. And you and I got together probably 6 or 8 months ago, and you were exploring the Salesforce ecosystem, which is where CRM Science, my team plays. And we found a way to come to agreement to work together. But what I'd like to hear is, where and why, what was the reasoning behind choosing the Salesforce ecosystem?
Yeah. And I think it's important to understand that our vision of the future for the financial advisor is kind of different than most companies. I think most companies are still fighting to be the advisor desktop. And our vision is, look, that's a battle we really don't want to be a piece of. And in 2 reasons. One being, it's a tough battle to win. And 2, I kind of think it's over. I kind of think we've gone through those 5 or 10 years, and most advisors now have decided we're going to live, or most firms have decided for their advisors, we're going to have you guys live in a CRM, or we're going to have you guys live in a portfolio management solution. And really the lines are getting quite blurred between those two. So the vision of what we're trying to do is not really integrated software, but we're calling it embedded, where it's all the functionality, it's all the tools that they need to multiply the effectiveness of something like Salesforce that might do some things exceptionally well, but might do other things like onboarding, not to the degree that people would hope or expect, or account opening. And we say, look, we're going to drop our technology right into Salesforce. It's going to look like it. It's going to feel like it. It's going to taste like it. Technology doesn't decide how successful your firm's going to be or your advisors are going to be. It's the take up of that technology. And one of the friction points is always, how do we teach them a new system, a new solution? So even overlays that demand that your guys learn a new UI UX, and it's obvious I'm not in Salesforce anymore. Those are unnecessary friction points. So the decision by our company was, we want to be embedded onboarding. Salesforce has a lot of the demographics and a lot of the characteristics of their clients in this industry that we're looking for, not the 1 and 2 RIA shops, but growing, technology savvy, has a certain amount of asset size that they are seeing a velocity of account openings where they need to figure out how to automate this stuff, probably multi-custodian. So direct custodian solutions might not fit the bill. And it is the first place where we're embedding the software. Now, we're going to embed it wherever the advisors live. So you can imagine the other CRMs, the other desktops selections, they're going to have an embedded Nest Wealth onboarding functionality as well. But Salesforce for us just seemed like the premier and best place for us to start. And they got really excited about it. They selected us as one of their business builder companies. I think they selected about a dozen globally for 2022. The reception from the organization and the ability of them to kind of see what we're trying to do and how we're trying to make lives better for their clients has been incredibly gratifying. When you think like how big they are, we're 100-person company out of Canada, but the arms have been thrown wide open.
Yeah. And I know I shared this vision with you. I don't know. Maybe I think I'm a visionary, but 4 or 5 years ago, I remember the comment about the Nest Wealths of the world helping to drive the platform. And I think where Salesforce has come to understand, to your point, which is, hey, if they can only own the desktop, and they can add value with you, then that's the best way to drive ROI. And let's face it, let's get their platform as part of the solution. Not that FSC isn't a great product, but it really shines when you couple it with some of the apps that are, on the App Exchange.
Yeah, and it's really hard, I think, for some cultures to come to grips with we might not be the best to build everything, but that notion of being the one who builds everything is just ridiculous in this day and age when there's so many different areas that can be improved and so many needs. And I haven't fully thought this thesis out, but it's something that I've been kind of noodling on as I've been sitting in the audiences here. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you get to a peak UI UX where improvements going forward are so marginal and so kind of tiny that's not the battle we should be facing anymore. It feels like we're there. Like, I don't know how much more simple some of the solutions are out there. And so now it's really about, what can you do to increase my traction? What can you do to increase my take up? What can you do to make this thing adopted by everybody in the organization? I don't really care if you get rid of one more click, assuming that we're kind of at the stage where we've done all that. What I really care about is, can you make it unbelievably easy for my people to use this?
Yeah, I think this is probably a topic we should talk about offline. This might be here all night. Through my experience, about 3 or 4 years ago, we used the all-encompassing word of user adoption, and then we used the word user experience, user adoption, and then we said user interface, user adoption, right? Then we said training, user adoption. I said, time out. We're using all these words interchangeably, like they all mean the same thing. They don't, right? No, if you have a really good UI and people trust when they hit submit and they know where the button is, and then you train them on all that, then you have high user adoption.
Right.
But people just want to say, we have a good UX team. I'm like, okay, that's like 1/4 of the equation. So to your point, right? I don't know. It's an interesting debate as to whether or not more UX is needed. I definitely think it's more training, right? Because I'm seeing the same issues I saw years ago. People are racing, and we have a rule now. Like if users don't show up to UAT, we stop.
But
right?
Think about coming at it from another way. You're saying better training. I'm saying remove the need for training at all. Just put them in an interface that they already understand.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Let's be fair. Salesforce does a lot of great things. Their UI UX is not top of the heap, right? But I'd rather deploy a product on an environment where all my users are already familiar and using it every day than have to train someone to figure out how to pick it up, no matter how great the UI UX gets.
Yeah, interesting topic. One other note for the future we'll remember when we go back and listen to this, I think, is we have a client in the nonprofit space, the retirement community.
Yep.
And the argument here would be, is it 100% adoption or is it 0 adoption? In other words, it's not needed.
Yep.
So picture your Uncle Bill wakes up and his picture that you made for him as a little kid falls down. He gets up on an iPad. He doesn't know if it's iOS or Salesforce behind the scenes, whatever it might be. He types in, my picture fell. There's some software behind the scenes that says this is a pretty serious thing, especially in this type of environment, because his nephew probably made it for him. It reaches out to the service team. It knows who's on board and pings back. And there's a message that comes back. It says, Randy will be here in a half hour to hang your picture, right?
Totally.
Or the person never knew they were in Salesforce. And think about the old use case. That guy goes out to the counter, drops a handwritten message to the person at the front desk. That person forgets it, gets it to the guy the next day. Then he stops by your place. You're not there. Now we're a week with the picture still sitting on the floor. Yet this one person arguably didn't need to be trained in any of that technology, just had to type 3 things on a screen.
I think that's kind of the epiphany that I'm having as I walk the exhibit floor here. And man, don't get me wrong, there are some unbelievable solutions here. But am I really going to engage with someone if I roll in a new solution that they have to learn, they have to figure out how to? Integration's great, but if the only thing moving from one thing to the other is data, it's not really solving the problem of usability or I don't need to be trained because I already know how to do this. That's
Yeah.
the whole, and we can talk forever about it, but that's the whole concept behind the embedded solution.
Yeah, I love it. So let's kind of finish up with a takeaway around T3, and then we'll talk about your superpower, of which I know you're going to have way more than one.
Not just one.
Yeah. Oh, really?
I haven't thought of it yet.
Exciting. Oh, good. Yeah.
Okay.
Great. So leaving T3, right? What you're leaving here? Well, I think you always share with that, right? You've got some things you're noodling on, which are things like, what really is user adoption? What does it look like? Anything else stand out that's really piqued your interest?
I will say this with the greatest kindness that I can muster to the financial services industry and the tech that's being provided to it. There are some incredibly sophisticated, unbelievably exciting things to do, but I am staggered by how many of the very low level basic stuff is still not being done in any efficient way. I honestly expected to come here and say, all right, we were right. Our market, our kind of RIAs, $1 billion plus, maybe some independent broker dealers, but not to mention names. There are core players in this industry, from custodians to broker dealers to that still haven't figured out that digital onboarding, straight through processing is something that everybody wants and everybody needs, and they don't have it. And the conversations we were having with them about, can we fit into their ecosystem and can we embed in them? Super, super exciting, totally unexpected. But the takeaway is, we seem to be, it's like our own platform. We have some AI, we have some natural language processing. Do we see a lot of utility of that stuff? Not really. Do we see people get super excited when we can take a piece of paper and move it online and get an electronic signature instead of a wet signature? Yeah. Like, we are so early for everything we say. We are so early in the digital transformation of this industry that it's kind of weird to see all the super sophisticated solutions, recognizing that when I was speaking on Tuesday, I was speaking to a room of 600 or 700 people. I asked how many of them have or work at firms that have a digital account opening. 12 people in the entire room put their hands up.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That's my takeaway.
Thank you for that.
Oh, you're very welcome, man. You and the 2 people that are listening to this podcast.
Yeah, that's right. You and me is 2. All right, so let's wrap it up with this darn superpower thing. Tell me why you're so special, besides the fact that
you sound so defeated.
Look at that.
As you're asking,
we both have the same glasses.
Yeah. And then, do you remember when you told me you always have these around? And I went and bought like 4 more pairs of these. It's like, I'm trying to be you.
I love it.
Superpower. I think I can tell stories well. I think I can take things that might be mundane or boring or not particularly interesting and somehow engage people in, like, let's face it, account opening, digital opening. I mean, you can probably think of very few topics that sound less exciting than that.
I agree. I'd concur.
But there was a thread to pull on in that room that people found exciting and interesting and engaging with. And if you can weave a good tale, if you can tell a good story, man, you can do things and go places that you just can't if you don't have that superpower.
I appreciate that, my friend. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
As always, I always enjoy your company. Glad we had a chance to do it face to face. And I wish you nothing but the most success and a lot of laughs.
Yeah.
We have some of the same goals in common that way. So thanks for joining. And I'm sure I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Love it, Bill. Thanks, man.
Yeah.